Want to achieve network marketing success? Then you're in the right company. Hello, and welcome to Leave Nothing to Chance, hosted by networking marketing giant John Solleder. Learn everything you need to know about the network marketing space from somebody who's actually done it. Join us every week for front row seats as we feature some of the finest and most successful personalities in network marketing. Leave nothing to chance. Join us now.
Well, it is a privilege to introduce for the first time to some of our younger listeners, somebody who's had such an amazing impact on our industry for 50 plus years. And that's somebody who I learned a great deal from. And that's Big Al himself, Mr. Tom Schreiter. Tom, welcome and thank you so much. I know it's late night there over in Thailand where you're living now, but I appreciate you being on the show.
Well, of course, networkers, we're evening people, so this is perfect.
Exactly. So 1972, you get involved in the industry. What was your introduction?
I answered a little ad in the paper. I was looking for part-time work. My wife was pregnant and she said, "Hey dear, you don't make much money. Better find a part-time job." And so this ad says part-time business. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, part-time job for the rest of my life? That doesn't sound so good. How about a part-time business? So I answered the ad and they said, come down to this meeting. It was in the basement of a shopping center called Ford City Shopping Center in Chicago. I show up there. There's 150 deranged, hippie, communist, weird people jumping up and down on stage, talking about strange things falling out of their colon. It's 3 hours long. And at the end of this meeting, I'm kind of sneaking out the back, and this guy stops me and he says, are you the person that answered my ad? And I go, yeah. And I'm thinking, 150 people there. How did he know that I was the one that answered his ad? Well, later on, I figured out that I was the only guest. Everybody else. So, I couldn't sneak out during the meeting. There's like armed guards at the back of the room. So I said, I listened to the whole thing. It's not for me. I'm out of here. Thank you. And 3 hours, absolutely no effect on me, just weird people. But he used a skill called a word picture, one of the many skills we learned in network marketing. And 30 seconds later, I joined. So I learned a lesson that it's not the facts, it's not the information, it's not the meeting, it's not 3 hours and testimonials and company videos or slides. What I learned is it's none of that as far as making a decision. I also learned it can be done in 30 seconds. So 30 seconds later, I joined. And here's what I did with that lesson. Absolutely nothing. So I went out and I gave 45-minute backfill presentations to people who said no. And I figured, well, obviously they didn't have enough information. I'll stretch it to an hour and a half. And of course, that went even worse. And it wasn't later till I figured out I got my biggest lesson when we started, just by accident, that it all happens in 30 seconds. We should learn to control that. So that's how I started. Really, really bad. I started with 1 year and 10 months, absolute failure. So I don't want anybody here to think that I had this persistence. People used to say, man, you must have been persistent. No, I wasn't. I just didn't know you could quit. Nobody told me that. So I never had any downline that quit. It just never occurred to me. Naive, 22 years old. That's how it is.
What would you say turned it around all of a sudden? What was that magic moment where you said, hey, wait, I can do this?
Well, after a year and 10 months, my wife said to me, hey, dear, I'm pregnant with child number 2. How's your business coming along? And of course, I had to tell her the truth. I told her it's consistent. And she didn't like that very much. So she said, you either got to figure out how to make this work or do something different. So that's what happened.
Interesting. It's amazing what it takes to motivate us sometimes as other people, right? So Tom, over 35 books now. What are we up to? How many books total?
Almost 50 over my career, yeah.
Almost 50 books that you've written. I know you've spoken in over 100 nations. If you had to summarize, and I know this is tough with a career like you've had, and your career is still going. I mean, but what do you think the greatest impact or impacts that you've had on the free enterprise system, on network marketing, and more importantly, on people growing themselves. What would you say the greatest, impacts as you look back on these 50 some odd years that you've had?
Well, I started as a shy, nerdy, personality-free, charisma bypassed, a socially challenged engineer. And I should not have been let out in public. And what I proved was that you don't have to be this super outgoing, charismatic, take no prisoners, eye of the tiger, vision of an eagle, other dead animal body parts. You don't have to do any of that. You can be completely personality free and do well in this business if we just learn a few basic skills. So I tell people, you probably didn't start as bad as I did, totally useless with no skills. But if we could say a few words, everything changes. So my impact on the industry was this. People said to me, after a year and 10 months, I changed a few words, magic happened. And people started joining. So people said, well, could you tell us what you say? I said, sure, say these things, and then people join. And that's what happens. And people couldn't believe it was that easy. So I was able to build huge teams just by saying the right words. And, I'm not an Instagram model. I'm not charismatic or influencer. I say, if you say these words, people join. So get on with it. That's how it works.
So let me say this, Tom. Years ago, I doubt you remember this because I know I've traveled a lot the last 40 years. I can't even imagine 50 years, and I know you've been a lot more places than I have even. But you and I met in London. I was working with a company that had opened over there. I want to say this was about 1992, but who knows, right? As the years go on, the decades become like a year, right? And you and I know what we're talking about. But I have a lot of young listeners. For whatever reason, with these podcasts, the young folks seem to like them even more so than the guys in our age group. They seem to listen to them and it resonates with them. And I know we've got some young listeners that are not familiar with Big Al. And let me just kind of give the audience my 2 cents on Big Al and why Big Al is business changing material. It made so much sense when I read that little book. I met you in London. You actually spoke at one of my events. And of course, I bought your book, as did our team. Big Al Tells All. I remember, and I'm sure it's there in a collection somewhere, right? Way back. And it just was so logical that, we run after sometimes these prospects that are, they're going to be superstars because they work for some big company in some big city and they know a million people and blah, blah, blah. And we invest so much time and money in the wrong direction, and we forget our next door neighbor who we can walk next door and have a cup of coffee with. And that made so much sense to me, and it helped me to build my business. And I want to thank you for that on behalf of myself and my family, because it helped us to understand the business in such a simple way and duplicate it tens of thousands of times over the years. But let's talk about Big Al. Was there an actual Big Al, or let's talk about that. Let's have some fun with it. Tell me about Big Al, and tell the audience, more importantly, Tom, how that impacts them, not only with 2-on-1 sponsoring, but also with, that logic of how they prospect.
Big Al was a mean, practical joke played on me by former friends. Very embarrassing story. It stuck. If you can remember, I came from Chicago. So, they hooked me up with Al Capone and whoever else there, and, the Big Al, and it was embarrassing. But despite all the embarrassment, we learned this, that it was our job is to get people to make a decision. I mean, the company makes the products, they can ship the products, they have customer service, they have lawyers, they got all this stuff. So our partnership with the company is pretty simple. They do everything. And all we have to do is get people to say yes. So I tell people, we got the greatest deal in the world. The company has to do all this work, the customer service and shipping and all this stuff. All we have to do is get people to say yes. So we're in the yes decision business. So people ask you, what do you do for a living? Yeah, I'm in the yes decision business. That's it. That's the only thing we get paid for. The company doesn't pay us for presentations or attraction marketing systems. It's just getting people to say yes. So here is the dilemma. And that is, we go to a party and people say, what do you do for a living? And we say, well, we get yes decisions. And then the people say, so how do you do that? And we go, I don't know. And people are thinking, well, you're an idiot. I mean, you don't even know how to do your job. But if you think about it, people don't know how they make decisions. They think it's, I don't know how to make decisions. I'll wait for lightning to strike, or little voices talking in my ear, or some sort of hormonal flare up, or 15,000 reasons for, 14,000 reasons against. How is it the human mind makes a decision? And they don't have any idea. So as network marketing, we learn how it works. And this is awesome. All right. So the company says, all you have to do is get people to say yes. We know how it works, and we get paid. He says, what a license to print money. So the Big Al system is going with your sponsor and just getting in front of people. All we're paid for is to talk to people. And I guess, John, you and I notice how people come up with these gigantic autoresponder systems and funnels and all these things, these chat boxes and stuff, and they spend a fortune on these systems, and they go through all these funnels and stuff, finally get somebody to talk to, and then they don't know what to say. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if you got to spend all this money, all this attraction marketing stuff to, get it to happen so you have somebody to talk to, couldn't you just spend $5 and buy coffee for the person next door? Save all the middlemen, it would be a lot quicker. And they say, well, they may not be as good as prospect as some. Oh, wait, those are miserable prospects I'm getting on my attraction marketing system. So it's the same. We just have to learn to talk to people. So if we can learn to talk to people, some basic skills, we're set for life. We'll never be unemployed.
Exactly. I remember reading that, and whatever time frame that was, early 90s, 30 years ago. But I remember even then that I had spent some time, the way my career started, I started with one company, and then they had a problem with the FDA. I was in college when I started, right? And you can imagine a company, early 80s, what company I'm talking about. And I got out of network marketing and went into the life insurance business for a short time with Metropolitan Life. And it was the same thing in that business. Every new agent had a cousin who was, sales manager at General Motors, and they knew 10,000 people, and they were going to do a group plan, and they were going to retire to Tahiti. And the lady next door who just had a new baby, who needed insurance for the baby and probably for herself and her husband. Oh, I don't want to talk to them. That's a small commission. And it was the same logic. And I don't know why human beings are wired that way for the big deal instead of just going out and writing business, be it in insurance or be it in network marketing. But love your thoughts on that, because you understand how the brain works and those synapses that either lead to super success like you've had, or frustration like many people have. Love you to talk about that a little bit.
Well, you don't have to be a neuroscientist. You can just look at human nature and sort of figure this out. So I don't encourage people to read neuroscience papers like I do, because I'm a nerd. I mean, just look outside the door, and one of the easiest things to notice is people are reactionary. They don't think, they just react with no thinking involved. And an example would be, we walk down the street and we say hi, and a stranger will normally say hi back to us. Simple reaction, no thought process. We walk into a store, the sales clerk says, "Can I help you?" What do we normally say?
Of course.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm just looking. Automatic. People don't use their brains. It's just a reaction thing going on. And we do tons of these. You smile at people, they smile back. You say, wait a minute. People are reactionary. They don't use their free will. They just react. So let me see. Everybody's telling me no. I wonder who they're reacting to. So when that was pointed out to me just to start, I says, man, this is embarrassing. This is, I mean, I was at the scene of the accident every time they said no. So when we start learning what's going on, it's pretty clear. But when we get started, there's so many balls in the air. We're trying to figure out compensation plan. We're saying that the human mind is not even set up for math. Math does not work in the brain. Stories do, but math doesn't. So we're trying to figure out all these things, and we're missing the big picture. We just got to get people to say yes. You say, all right, so how do I get people to say yes? You give them an option. The option is the wonderful thing we offer, or keep your miserable life the same. And no rejection. You stand back. Easy. You say, hey, yeah, I'm going to gift you another option in your life. You can take it or keep your miserable life the same. And depending on our experience, we can make our option sound pretty good compared to, waking up by the alarm clock, commuting to work, a boss who doesn't care about you, no job security, having all your income and 100% of your income in one basket, which is being guarded by a dysfunctional boss. You go, wow, it doesn't take much skill to make what we have look a whole lot better than a job. So all you have to do is give people that choice, and then you're not scared of closing. It just seems natural.
Makes most total sense. Total sense. So let's segue a little bit. Let's talk about, what's going on right now, right? Here we are, 2022. And I don't think we need to tell anybody what's going on in the economy. They see it, whether they live, in Thailand, whether they live in Dallas, whether they live in, Timbuktu, right? I mean, the world is in a lot of pain right now financially. And I've asked this question to some other people, some friends of yours that have been on the show, Randy Gage, Larry Thompson, Dan McCormick, some of the guys that that I've interviewed previously. And I've asked them all the same question. And I got to ask you this question, and I'd love your viewpoint on this. So let me set this up for you, right? We all know those people who had no interest in network marketing because they had a degree, or they had a profession, or they even had a trade, or they had whatever. And network marketing, that's not for me. Those are, pyramid schemes or blah, 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 blah. Whatever their perception was of our great industry that we understand is so wonderful and powerful and freeing of people. But they had that wrong perception. And then all of a sudden, little thing called COVID happens, kind of changes the world, changes the economy, et cetera, et cetera. And here we are, 2022. And let's just say that it's a hypothetical family I'm making up here, but it's a 25-year-old son. And the son, Tom, is a guy that went to school, got good grades, did what he was supposed to do, got a degree, right? Went to college, spent a bunch of time and money, and started his business career doing whatever it was he was doing. And all of a sudden, COVID happened. Dad is a guy, 60-ish, was kind of getting to the end of the road thinking, okay, my 401k or my SEP retirement plan or whatever he had set up, it's looking pretty good. And I'm going to get Social Security. And he's scoping out all the golf courses in his town or the fishing holes or whatever it is he's into and saying, hey, that's what I'm going to be spending the balance of my life, doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, we know what happened. And they say, Tom Schreiter, wow, that guy lives down the street from us. I wonder if we knocked on his door, if he'd give us a few minutes of his time and shed some light on this network marketing industry, this direct selling industry, because we don't really understand it. And what you're not up on, you're down on, but we think we better take a look at it because of all the circumstances that currently exist in the economy. So we're open-minded. Let's go talk to Tom and see what he has to say. What would your guidance be, Tom, to that dad and his son who would knock on your door this morning?
Well, the macroeconomic issues way over my head. I don't give it any thought. I let the economists argue over who's going to be wrong next. So I just kind of ignore all that. So I have a very small bandwidth. So to the 60-year-old father, he says, well, probably pretty late to save enough money and at 1/4% compound interest from the savings account to build up your residual income when you retire. So what's your choices? And the choices are a residual income from network marketing. How long is it going to take you to get a 500 or 1,000 a month residual income? He said, well, it could take a year. And I says, well, what's your pension? 2,000. How long did that take? 40 years. Oh, yeah, I got it. So, and you could do this a couple of years. Okay. What about the 25-year-old? I says, well, got some college bills there, huh? He says, yeah, besides inflation and everything, I still got to pay the college loan, which leaves me with a negative cash flow every month. And I said, well, let's build a part-time income for you. So at least I'll pay off your college notes. Would it be okay if your college loans are gone? So you could have a part-time business do it or continue paying yourself. It's not a hard choice. And they say, well, how do you do it? I says, well, here's where a little brain science would help. The way the brain works is it can't learn anything unless it can compare it to something that already knows. So you tell it something brand new, the brain says, what do I relate that to in my brain? So the words analogy is a good word for us. You say, this is like this. So you say, well, what does chocolate taste like? Well, you can't tell people what chocolate tastes like unless you can compare it to, well, sort of like licorice, it's better, but more sugar. You always have to compare it to something. You just can't have a new idea make any sense. And that's why math is hard for the human brain. There's nothing to hang our hooks on. So I said, all right, so how am I going to tell them network marketing in a way that they can relate to what they do now? And so you tell them a little story, because story is a preferred way of learning by the human brain. So you can say, all right, we go to a grocery store and I buy a Diet Coke and 44 bars of Snickers. And the clerk says, that'll be $100. Okay. You're right behind me in line and you order a Diet Coke and 44 bars of Snickers. The clerk says, all right, that'll be $100, but we have a frequent shoppers card. And you say, well, what's that? He said, well, you get points every time you buy. You save up your points and go to Hawaii or pay off your college debt. So that's network marketing. You just repeat. And they said, and the clerk says, oh, by the way, if you let other people know they can get a frequent shoppers card when they buy Snickers and anything else they buy at the store, we'll give you some extra points so you can go to Hawaii quicker or pay off your college debt quicker. That's it. So I just recommend our store, have them get this loyalty card. We both went to the same store. I'm out $100. You're out $100, but you got a whole bunch of points. You're going to go to Hawaii and I'm not. And when you introduce it to some other people, you get a whole lot more points. It might even pay off your college debt, maybe buy your own college and give you the grades you always wanted. So they say, yeah, I can kind of see that happening. So if you say network marketing is recommending and promoting what you like, that's it. You give people a choice, may work for them or may not.
Brilliant.
But we can't prejudge people and we don't have the right to withhold options from them. We should at least give them the option to say yes or no.
What a brilliant analogy. And that's what I love listening to you, Tom, and reading your stuff is it's so logical. It speaks to where people live versus all of this highfalutin, craziness of whatever. Anyway, I love it. That's just a simple, logical explanation of how our business works. Love it. So, Tom, let me ask you this. Words of wisdom, you always say short is better. Give us some examples.
Well, there's a thing called TikTok, which holds people's attention span for how long? Oh, let me see, a second? And we prejudge and we're off to the next one, prejudge off to the next one, prejudge off to the next one. That just should start giving us a hint of how quick the human mind makes decisions. So here's why shorter is better, because that's how the human brain thinks. If you want to get really technical, Microsoft did this big study that the human attention span is 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Goldfish is 9, but goldfish doesn't have social media, so you can expect longer. But 8 seconds. And you say, wow, yeah, but Microsoft, they have billions of dollars. What about me? I have this really cool presentation that lasts an hour. Oh yeah, you're so toast. You're so toast. So people make up their minds quickly. If we know this, we can get decisions quickly because we understand what's going on. So when I do this, people say, no, people have to know the name of the company. They have to know the compensation plan. They have to know the background of the founders. They have to compare that my scientists can beat up your scientists. And I says, really? That's how humans do things? I mean, let's go on aisle 4 of the store. We're shopping. We see a box of cornflakes. What do? We're looking at our cart and go, oh, a box of cornflakes. Cornflakes. I wonder if they have a company website. Tell me about the founder. Are the cornflakes natural, international, supernatural? Can their scientists beat up your science? No, that's not how we think. We just make up our mind. So I do a little demo for people because I get feedback. I wouldn't say feedback, criticism all the time. They say, no, people make decisions after the facts, after the presentation. I said, really? Let's try this. I'm going to say, can I take your children skydiving with me? How quick was your decision? For most people, no, you can't take my babies. And some will say, well, yeah, I'll help push them out the plane. They're miserable. Well, whatever. But the decision happened before the information, before you found out that I'm a certified skydiver, that I'm successful 3 out of 4 times, that we're only going to jump 1 inch. The decision happened before. People go, all right, so what about when you go on YouTube? How long does it take you to decide if you want to continue watching this video or not? Like 5 seconds? Yeah. And I said, let's imagine that, John, you and I are doing a meeting, and at the meeting, John, you say to the group, when the meeting's over, Big Al and I, we're going to the ice cream parlor for ice cream. Who wants to come with us? Half the people raise their hand, and half the people don't. They're thinking, oh, I'm lactose intolerant. I have a babysitter at home. All right. But how quick was the decision? And they made the decision before they knew where the ice cream parlor was located, before they knew how many flavors, how many kilocalories, how much saturated fat, if you're going to buy, or if they had to pay for themselves. The decision happened way before that. And I do this, I don't know, I can do 13, 15 of these in a row till finally people will say, stop, just stop. I got it. And when they do that, they can throw away the company video and the PowerPoint presentations and the macro economy and say, it's good and bad news. The bad news is people make up their minds in the first 15 seconds. The good news is we only have to be good for about 15 seconds. So once we know that, that's how you get the duplication. If you can make that first 15 seconds rock, you pretty well have it in tow. So that's the advice I give people.
It's amazing because I've never thought of it exactly like that, but I see people sometime, whether it's in my current company or the other 4 that I've built over the last 40 years and been intimately involved with. And I see people sometimes who, by all rights, shouldn't be successful. Their background, they don't speak well, maybe they don't have all that stuff that you would normally think of that successful guy or gal, right? And they're killing it. And then you look at the other guy or gal, they walk in, they got the Armani suit and they've got the jewelry and they've got their, every hair's in place and they look great. And 2 months later, you can't find them. And 6 months later, you can't even remember who they were. You just remember that they crossed your path. And what you just said there made so much sense, because I think it's the people who decide, hey, I'm doing this. Get out of my way. I'll figure it out, versus the ones who say, yeah, I need all of this. I need all of this justification that I then have to turn around and justify to everyone else why they should be in their own business to take care of their own financial house and get their own financial house in order. It's just brilliant what you said. I want to talk as we get to closing this session, Tom, because we're going to do 2 sessions, everybody, because Tom is beyond a legend. He is a person who has influenced a generation of network marketers. There's nobody you talk to in our industry that does not know Big Al, that does not reference Big Al. Now, they try to make it their own sometimes, and they try to pretend that they created something. This is the guy that created it. This is the guy who wrote about it. This is the man who lived it, built huge organizations, influenced companies, influenced generations of distributors. And let's talk about all of your past books, because then in session 2, we're going to pick up and start talking about your new book. But let's talk about the books, where they get them, and whatever else you want to share.
All the Big Al books we send to Amazon or Kobo or Apple Books or whatever, and they take care of it. So I tell people, go to Amazon. They have like free shipping for a lot of people. They're really cheap on Amazon. The couple dollars that Amazon makes can help them stock up on toilet paper for the next pandemic. We found that was the cheapest way to get the books to people. So they're all inexpensive. I tell people, I think $12.95 for a book. And I think on ebook, it's less than $5, or for $6, they'll read it to you. How cool is that? So I said, learn. I just write books about skills as far as the macro economic, strategic overall, where the industry is leading and all this. Way over my head. I just never went there. But if you like to know what to say and what to do to get people to say yes, and what happens, the basic skills, that's what I talk about. So that's why I'm a legend. legend means really, really old. So that works.
I don't know if you know Joe Garcia or not, but he certainly knows you. He's top guy in his company up in Canada, up in Toronto, and I've interviewed him a couple of times, and every time I'll send him back, Facebook or whatever we correspond on, and say, "You're a legend." He's like, "I'm not old enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not old like all of you guys." I'm like, well, Joe, if the shoe fits, wear it. But we throw that word around pretty casually in this industry. Yeah. Well, Tom, this has been a privilege and a pleasure. And we're going to come back and we're going to do a second show. So this show's airing on September 6th as you're watching and listening to it, folks. The next one will be September 20th. And you're not going to want to miss it because Tom's going to share some of his insights. And all I can tell you is hang on to your hats because you're going to learn. If you haven't learned a lot from this session, and hopefully you have, and you should, and hopefully you're dedicating these notes from Tom to your notebook so that you own them. They become your things to go out, influence your generations of the field and your business with. But either way, come back on September 20th and listen to round 2. So Tom, thanks so much for round 1, and we'll be back with round 2 here shortly.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Leave Nothing to Chance. If you want to know more about what it takes to succeed in the network marketing space, join us again next week for another amazing episode. For additional resources and to connect with John Solleder, visit leavingnothingtochance.com. Don't forget to leave a review, and we'll see you next time.